I never expected to be anyone's pride, especially not in my family. I was the youngest child and the only daughter in a house where success was measured in six-figure salaries, shareholder meetings, and private equity. My two older brothers, Thomas and Jason, had built a reputation as tech geniuses, the brains of Westford, local media once called them. Me? I was just Emma. At family dinners, they'd talk about pitch decks, VC funding, and product market fit. My mother would smile and nod. My father would toast to their accomplishments, and then, without fail, someone would turn to me and ask, "So, are you still doing housekeeping?" It wasn't even a question. It was mockery, veiled behind forced politeness. They didn't care to hear about the online courses I was taking or the ideas I was scribbling in my notebook between cleaning gigs. No one wanted to know why I left my marketing job 2 years ago. They just assumed I had failed. And maybe, to them, I had. That night, the air around the dinner table smelled like rosemary chicken and subtle disappointment. "Pass the salt, Maid Emma," Thomas snickered. Jason didn't even bother hiding his laugh. "Jason!" My mother scolded lightly, though a smirk lingered on her lips. "It's okay," I said, forcing a smile. "I know my place." "Oh, don't be so dramatic," Jason said. "Honestly, I admire you. There's honor in hard labor. The world needs cleaners, too." "Like toilets don't scrub themselves," Thomas chimed in. "Respect." Laughter. Even Dad cracked a grin, and my cheeks burned. I stared down at my plate, pushing the chicken around with my fork. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell them who I really was, what I was building, what I had signed just days ago. But instead, I swallowed it all with a sip of red wine. Because timing is everything. What they didn't know couldn't hurt them. Yet. I left early that night, claiming I had to catch a bus. Thomas offered to order me a rideshare, just to flex his app, and I politely declined. The truth was, I preferred the bus. It gave me time to think. As the city lights flickered past the window, I opened my phone and checked the message I'd received earlier that day. Subject: Preliminary approval. Acquisition Phase 2. Emma Carter, congratulations on the successful completion of Stage 1. As of this morning, Ardent Technologies has greenlit the merger with Blackwell Analytics. As acting CEO of Cloakware Systems, your controlling stake will now translate into a board seat. Please prepare for the Investor Gala this Friday in San Francisco. You'll be introduced to the team and expected to present alongside CTO Morgan Lynn and Ardent CEO Raphael Blackwell. My fingers trembled, not from fear, but from the raw surge of emotion. I wasn't just building a business. I had quietly created something powerful enough that the biggest cybersecurity firm in the country wanted me on their board. Cloakware Systems wasn't a cleaning agency. It was a stealth mode encryption startup I founded under a pseudonym. I built it while juggling odd jobs, using free co-working spaces, coding through the night, and cold emailing investors. All while my family believed I was scrubbing baseboards and folding sheets. Let them believe that, for just a few more days. Back at my small apartment, I kicked off my shoes and sat down on the edge of my bed. My inbox pinged again. This time, it was from Raphael Blackwell himself. "Looking forward to meeting you in person, Emma. I've read your work. Brilliant stuff. Don't let anyone underestimate what you've built." I stared at the words, my heart thudding. For the first time in years, someone important wasn't laughing at me. They were listening, respecting, recognizing. I was done being the forgotten sister. This was just the beginning. I spent the next 3 days doing exactly what my family assumed I did. Cleaning. Not because I needed the money, but because I needed the clarity. There's something almost meditative about scrubbing someone else's kitchen floor while silently plotting a corporate takeover. And no one suspects a maid. That was the brilliance of it. The same condescension that made my brothers mock me had shielded me from their attention long enough to grow an empire in the shadows. On Wednesday morning, I folded laundry in a penthouse apartment overlooking the bay. The woman who lived there, an investment banker named Carolyn, had once interviewed me for a junior analyst role. I didn't get the job, but now, her firm had unknowingly invested in Cloakware's seed round through a syndicate I structured. I placed a freshly ironed blouse on her bed and smiled at the irony. Small world, I whispered to no one. At night, I worked. In my apartment-turned-office, I reviewed presentation slides, practiced my pitch, and synced with Morgan Lynn, my brilliant yet socially awkward CTO. "Emma," he said during one of our late-night Zoom calls, "are you sure you want to present in person? I can take point." "No," I said. "It has to be me." "You know they're going to look you up after. Your real name, your photo, your whole cover might unravel." "Let it," I replied. "I'm done hiding." Morgan nodded slowly, pushing his glasses up his nose. "Then make them regret every moment they thought you were less." Friday arrived. I stood in front of my narrow closet, staring at a rented designer dress. Navy blue, sleek, powerful. My natural curls framed my face, and a delicate gold necklace completed the look. I wasn't dressing to impress. I was dressing to announce. The investor gala was held at the Harlan Regency Ballroom, where my brother's startup had once failed to raise Series A funding 2 years ago. I remembered Jason ranting about snooty gatekeepers and biased metrics. Now, here I was, walking through the same glass doors under the title of CEO and lead strategist. Inside, the room buzzed with energy. Suits and champagne, flashy demos, industry titans. The Ardent Technologies banner hung above the main stage, its bold lettering a declaration of power. I registered at the front desk. The attendant, a tall woman with a Bluetooth headset, typed my name, paused, then looked up sharply. "Oh, Miss Carter, you're the mystery partner Raphael mentioned. We were expecting someone." "Shorter? Shabbier? Smelling faintly of bleach?" I offered. She flushed. "No, I didn't mean—" "It's fine," I said, taking my name badge. "I get that a lot." 10 minutes before our presentation, Raphael Blackwell found me near the espresso bar. Tall, silver-haired, and effortlessly commanding, he offered a warm handshake. "Emma Carter," he said, eyes twinkling. "Finally, the enigma herself." I smiled. "I hope I live up to the mystery." "Oh, you will." Cloakware's demo had our R&D division speechless. His gaze shifted past my shoulder. "By the way, your family is here. You didn't mention that." My stomach flipped. "They're what?" "They're here for the networking dinner. Jason Carter and Thomas Carter, representing Data Century. They just registered." Data Century. Their company. Their pride and joy. The same startup that refused to hire me, even as an intern. I turned toward the entrance. There they were, smug in designer suits, business cards in hand, utterly unaware they were about to walk into my moment. I wasn't ready to confront them yet. I had a presentation to deliver first. "Excuse me," I told Raphael. "Time to shatter a few assumptions." On stage, the lights were hot and blinding. Morgan fidgeted beside me, clearly uncomfortable in his suit. "Ladies and gentlemen," Raphael announced from the podium, "allow me to introduce the newest member of Ardent's executive board, CEO of Cloakware Systems, encryption visionary, and the quiet architect of our next-gen security initiative, Miss Emma Carter." There was polite applause. Then I stepped forward, and the applause slowed. I heard whispers. Someone gasped. From the back of the room, I spotted Thomas elbowing Jason. Their jaws were hanging open. "Good." I smiled. "Most people don't take you seriously when they think you scrub toilets for a living," I began. "But encryption doesn't care what your resume says. It only cares if your code works. And mine does." The stage lights faded to a soft glow, leaving me alone at the podium. My hands rested on either side of the sleek metal stand, calm on the outside. But my pulse raced. I could feel it in my throat, in the edges of my vision, like a drum beating a quiet war chant just for me. From the back of the ballroom, my brothers were frozen in place. Jason's mouth twitched, like he couldn't quite decide if this was a prank or a mistake. Thomas wore his usual cocky smirk, but his eyes, always a touch slower, were catching up to the reality unraveling in front of him. I focused on the screen behind me. My presentation began with a single phrase: "You never see what's hidden until it protects you." That was Cloakware's mission. That was mine. I continued, voice steady. Cloakware Systems was built in silence, forged not in boardrooms or with family connections, but through nights that bled into mornings, failures that no one else witnessed, and code I wrote while the world slept. Pause, breath. I am Emma Carter. I was once the daughter who got laughed out of her father's den for suggesting predictive cybersecurity. I was the sister who was told to stay in her lane while the real work happened at the dinner table. The crowd murmured, their attention locked. My throat tightened, but I refused to blink it away. I didn't want revenge, I continued. I wanted respect. But when that was denied, I made something of my own. I built a system that doesn't wait for approval. It anticipates threats. It learns. It protects. I glanced briefly toward my family again. This time, my father had joined them. He looked older than I remembered. Or maybe I had simply stopped seeing him as the mountain I once tried so hard to climb. His arms were crossed, his brows furrowed. I could almost hear him forming the words, "Is this a joke?" But this wasn't a joke. This was a reckoning. I finished the technical breakdown: encryption layers, stealth audits, AI signal tracking. By the time I closed the laptop, the room erupted into applause. Genuine, thunderous, sustained. I stepped off stage into a sea of handshakes and backpats, champagne flutes and admiring smiles. But in my peripheral vision, I saw them moving through the crowd like shadows. Emma! It was Jason. His voice, so familiar, so irritatingly condescending, still had that upward lilt at the end, like he was waiting to insert a punchline that would keep him above me. I turned to face them. Jason looked exactly as he always had: polished, smug, confident in a way that only ever came from never being told no. Thomas stood beside him, checking his phone like this was all just a delay in his schedule. My father stood behind them both, silent, watching. "So, Cloakware?" Jason said, chuckling awkwardly. "This is your company?" "Yes." "Since when?" Thomas cut in. "Since you both told me I wasn't cut out for tech," I replied smoothly. "I guess I wanted to prove you right." Jason cleared his throat. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Tell you what?" I asked. "That I didn't need your approval? That I found investors who looked at my code instead of my last name? That I built something while you were too busy trying to pitch data century at golf clubs and cocktail hours?" My voice was rising. I hadn't meant for it to. But the years pressed in. The dinners where they joked about me being the artsy one. The birthday cards with backhanded encouragements. The time my dad called me a temporary distraction from the family legacy. I wasn't yelling, but I wasn't whispering anymore either. You sat there at every family dinner talking about your algorithms, your prototypes, and I just listened, I said. And when I offered my thoughts, you dismissed them like a child suggesting a lemonade stand. Thomas folded his arms. "So what now? You want an apology?" "No," I said, stepping forward. "I want you to know that the next time Ardent Technologies invests, it'll be in Cloakware, not Data Century. I want you to understand that when your project fails its next audit, I'll be the one reviewing the compliance report, and I want Dad to know—" I turned. He hadn't moved. His face was stony, unreadable. The same expression he wore the day he told me I was wasting my potential chasing fairy dust in the digital cloud. "I want Dad to know," I continued, voice trembling now, "that I waited half my life for him to say he was proud of me. But I'm done waiting." He blinked. Once, twice. Then he said quietly, "Emma, we didn't know." "I know," I said. "That's the whole point." As I walked away, a few of Raphael's associates greeted me with excitement, but my mind was somewhere else. I slipped outside to the balcony. The night air was cold and still. I leaned against the rail, staring at the skyline, the towers glittering like silent witnesses to my becoming. I didn't feel triumphant, not really. I felt raw, seen, scared, and free. The morning after the summit, I sat alone on the edge of my hotel bed, still in the silk dress I hadn't bothered to take off. The city outside glowed in a wash of gray light, the kind that made everything look haunted. My phone was buzzing nonstop on the nightstand. Articles, mentions, emails, requests. Everyone suddenly wanted something from Emma Carter. But for the first time in years, I didn't feel like her. I felt like the girl who once slept on the pull-out couch in the den because her brothers needed the space, the one who memorized JavaScript tutorials in secret and coded back-end systems on a refurbished laptop because no one thought it was worth giving her better. How do you live with the reality that no one believed in you until it was convenient? My inbox was a parade of disingenuous curiosity. Would love to hear about your journey. Inspiring story? Ever consider a TED Talk? Let's circle back on that funding opportunity we passed on. They didn't know the half of it. And worse, they didn't care. The Emma they applauded yesterday? That woman was curated, armored, and practiced. But the truth was that I felt like I was always one stumble away from proving them right, that I wasn't good enough, that cloakwear was a fluke, that I was still the girl they left behind. I showered, changed into a black blazer and jeans, and took the elevator down to the lobby. People stared. A few whispered. One woman actually clapped as I passed, a small, embarrassed gesture, as though she couldn't help herself. I smiled politely and stepped outside into the cold. The streets of Manhattan were busy, unbothered by my so-called rise. I liked that. The city never pretended to care. It kept moving, and if you couldn't keep up, it rolled right over you. I walked for 2 blocks before ducking into a small cafe. I ordered black coffee and sat by the window, my laptop closed on the table in front of me. When Raphael called, I didn't answer right away. I stared at the screen, then finally picked up. "Hey," he said. "You alive?" "Technically." "You want to talk about it?" I glanced around. The cafe smelled like cinnamon and milk foam. A toddler in a red coat pointed out the window, giggling at a pigeon. "I don't know what I want," I said. "Yesterday I was on top of the world. Today I feel like I'm made of glass." Raphael was quiet. "I mean it," I said. "They all saw me win. But I still don't feel like I belong." "Imposter syndrome," he said gently. "It doesn't go away. You just learn to work with it." I let out a humorless laugh. "That's the most depressing pep talk I've ever heard." "You want lies or truth?" I sighed. "Always truth." He paused. "Then here's the truth. You stood up in front of a room full of people who thought you were nobody, and you made them listen. That's power, but power doesn't erase pain." I swallowed. My eyes stung. "I wanted them to regret underestimating me," I said. "But now that they do, it doesn't feel like a win. It just feels empty. Because revenge doesn't heal anything." "I wasn't trying to get revenge. Aren't you?" The line went quiet, and maybe that was it. Maybe I had been chasing their shame, their validation, through its opposite, proving they were wrong. I didn't build cloakwear just to be successful. I built it because I was tired of begging to be seen. I closed my eyes and remembered the first prototype I ever created. A self-healing firewall that rerouted attacks before they could touch the user layer. I was 23. I named it Irene, after the Greek goddess of peace. Peace. Funny how I hadn't felt that in years. I opened my laptop. My email was still swamped, but one name stood out in the crowd. Monica Whitaker, Senior Director, Artemis Secure. She was one of the first people to laugh me out of a room. Her message was short: "Emma, impressive work at the summit. Would love to discuss potential collaboration. Let me know if you're open to a conversation. Warmly, Monica." I stared at it for a long moment, then hit delete. Let her wonder. That evening, I visited the cloakwear office. Not the rented conference spaces or sleek launch venues, but our cramped but cozy downtown floor, where four developers worked around a ping pong table that doubled as a desk. They looked up when I entered. "Hey," said Malik, our lead engineer. "We saw the news. You crushed it." "Thanks," I said, setting down 2 boxes of pizza on the communal table. "Thought we could use a break." We ate, we laughed. We pushed the conference aside for an hour. And in that space, with people who chose me, not tolerated me, I felt a little more human again. Later, alone in my office, I wrote something on a sticky note and pressed it to my monitor. "Build for peace, not applause." Maybe I'd never truly silenced the voices that told me I wasn't enough, but I could outwork them, I could outlast them, and I could live by a truth no one could take from me. I didn't need their approval. I already had mine. The inbox was full again. But this time, the message at the top wasn't from an exec or journalist. It was from a name I hadn't seen in over a decade. From Lila Monroe. Subject: "Long time, Em. We need to talk, before it's too late." I stared at the screen, heart stalling in my chest. Lila Monroe. We'd grown up together, coding after school, building robots out of cereal boxes and Arduino kits. My first hackathon partner, my first real betrayal. The last time I saw her, we were 22 and standing outside the admissions office at the university incubator program. We had pitched our startup idea together, a modular encryption suite. But when the funding came through, Lila registered the company without me. I never got over it. So what the hell was she doing in my inbox now? I didn't respond right away. I left the office early and walked, hoping the city's chaos would drown out the static in my head. It didn't. Because the past, when it finally comes knocking, doesn't whisper. It bangs on your ribcage and forces its way in. I got home to a sleek apartment filled with silence. No plants. I always forgot to water them. No pets. I was never around. Just a digital assistant blinking in the corner and a half-drunk glass of wine from the night before. I opened my laptop and pulled up Lila's LinkedIn. She was now Chief Strategy Officer at Signatech, one of the largest, most ruthless cybersecurity corporations in the country. The same company whose acquisition offer Cloakware had turned down last week. I felt my stomach drop. This wasn't a reunion. This was a warning. The next day, I agreed to meet her. We chose a neutral place, a rooftop lounge downtown, with overpriced cocktails and a view of the skyline that made you forget how cold the wind was. Lila arrived 10 minutes late. Still tall, still poised, still dressed like every room belonged to her. She smiled like we were old friends. "Emma." I didn't smile back. "You work for Signatech now?" She gave a small shrug. "We both got where we were going. Some of us had to take the long way." Her smile dimmed, just slightly. "I didn't come to fight," she said. "I came to warn you." "About what?" She leaned in. "They're coming for you." She laid it out like it was nothing. Signatech had already reverse-engineered one of Cloakware's key security frameworks. They planned to launch a clone platform within 6 months, bundled into a compliance suite that would be cheaper, flashier, and legally gray. "They'll claim it's different enough to dodge IP lawsuits," she said. "But it's not. It's yours. Just repackaged." I stared at her, the ice in my drink untouched. "Why tell me?" I asked. "What do you get out of this?" Lila hesitated. Then she said something I didn't expect. "Because I never stopped regretting what I did to you. And because you were always the better engineer, I just moved faster. But now, you're the threat, and they want to crush you." I blinked. For a moment, it was 2012 again. 2 girls in a basement lab, whispering dreams over ramen and broken code. "Don't get sentimental now," I muttered. "I'm not," she said. "I'm practical. And you should be too." She slid a flash drive across the table. "This is everything, the specs, their timeline, their plan. If you move fast, you can beat them to market and bury the whole thing." I stared at it. A trap, a gift, or both? That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in bed, Lila's drive plugged into my laptop, its contents opened like Pandora's box. It was real. Everything she said, the stolen framework, the API structures, the marketing rollout, it was all there. They weren't just planning to copy us, they were planning to erase us. And worse, they had the capital, the reach, the legacy press. If I didn't act, Cloakware would be reduced to a footnote. I felt the old anxiety crawl up my spine. The girl who didn't belong, the woman who had everything to lose. But I also felt something else. Fire. The next morning, I walked into our office and called an emergency meeting. No suits, no outside advisors, just me and the team. I showed them what I'd found. This isn't just about them copying us, I said. It's about whether we fight back or fold. What's the plan? Malik asked. I looked around. We evolve. We finish Project Sentinel. Gasps. Project Sentinel was our most ambitious feature, predictive breach analytics. It had been in development for months, not yet ready for demo. But it was unique, patentable, and years ahead of Signatech's clone. We do it in 90 days, I said. People murmured, shocked. That's impossible, said one engineer. No, I said. It's us. And it's personal now. As the team got to work, I stepped into my office, pulled out a sticky note, and wrote, "Not here to compete, here to redefine." The war had officially begun. And I wasn't scared anymore. The office didn't sleep anymore. Code was being written at 3 a.m., pizza boxes stacked up like miniature monuments to our exhaustion. Emma had stopped wearing heels. No more PR interviews, no product teasers, just war mode. Project Sentinel, our AI-driven breach predictive security, was the only thing that could save us. If it launched first, and it worked, Cloakware wouldn't just survive. We'd change the cybersecurity industry permanently. But the clock was ticking, and the enemy was watching. The first hit came from the press. A glowing article on Signatech's upcoming Integrity First initiative went viral. A suspiciously timed campaign that painted them as the savior of digital privacy. They're gaslighting the entire industry, Malik grumbled as he tossed his phone on the table. They stole our code, and now they're marketing it like some kind of moral crusade. Emma narrowed her eyes. This isn't just PR spin, this is preemptive cover. She wasn't wrong. Later that day, a blog post from an anonymous source accused Cloakware of unethical data harvesting. Total fiction, but it didn't matter. The rumors had teeth. Then came the cease and desist letter. Signatech's legal team accused Cloakware of infringing on their IP, a bold, ironic move, considering the reverse engineering they'd done. But legally, it threw them into a gray area that could delay Sentinel's release indefinitely if the case went to court. Emma stood at her office window, rereading the letter, rage twisting in her chest. This is how giants crush startups, she said. They drown you in noise. Day 7. Sleep was a memory. She'd been living off caffeine and spite. Emma sat cross-legged on the floor of the conference room, wires strewn everywhere, reviewing Sentinel's behavior analytics module. It was working, mostly, but it needed real-world simulations, and they didn't have the infrastructure to run it at scale. Not unless. A thought hit her like lightning. She pulled her laptop, jumped into the cloud dev pipeline, and started rewriting the integration layer. It was messy, risky, but if she could piggyback it onto existing customer infrastructures using anonymized protocols, they could train Sentinel in real time without violating a single line of privacy law. By morning, it worked. When she showed Malik, he stared like she'd rewritten physics. "This is borderline genius," he said. Emma didn't blink. "No, this is survival." Then the breach happened. Day 13. Emma had just returned from grabbing protein bars when the system alert flashed red on her phone. Someone had accessed internal repository branches, deep ones. When she reached the office, the whole dev floor was on edge. "I locked it down," said Arya, one of their junior engineers. "They didn't get the core modules." Emma froze. Who did? That's when they found the access log. An admin account. One tied to a former engineer. Someone who had been let go 6 months earlier. But his credentials should have been deactivated, Arya whispered, eyes wide. Emma's mind raced. Signatech's cease and desist, the blog post, the breach. This wasn't a series of coincidences. This was a coordinated inside job. Later that night, Emma met Lila again, this time in a grimy 24-hour diner, the kind where nobody asked questions. Lila looked shaken, genuinely so. I swear I didn't know about the breach, she said, voice low. They must have had someone already planted. Emma slammed the flash drive she'd given her weeks ago onto the table. You said you wanted to help, but everything since that night has gone downhill. Lila winced. I'm not the enemy, Emma, but you're playing against something bigger than both of us. Signatech isn't just targeting you, they're working with investors and regulators. They want cloakware to go away permanently. Emma stared at her. Then why give me the drive? Because I made the same mistake once, Lila said, and I watched you rebuild without cutting corners. I owed you the truth. Emma didn't answer. She didn't trust her, not fully. But her gut told her that Lila's remorse was real. Still, someone had sold them out, and Emma needed to find out who. Day 18. At 3:22 a.m., Emma sat alone in the war room, reviewing code commits, line by line. That's when she found it. A backdoor function, subtle, deeply buried, not in the core AI, but in the API gateway of Sentinel. It could allow silent data siphoning to an external IP. She traced the commit to a pseudonym. It took her 2 more hours to match it to a real profile. One of her own engineers, currently working, sitting 10 feet from her. The betrayal left a burn in her throat. She didn't confront him then, not yet. She had to be sure. She pulled logs, cross-referenced emails, watched the puzzle snap together. He'd been feeding Signatech progress reports for months. The next morning, she walked straight into his workspace. Need you in the conference room, she said, voice steady. The rest of the office froze as he followed, hesitant. Inside, Malik was already waiting. Emma locked the door. She opened her laptop and projected the commit history, the logs, the messages. Explain this, she said. He paled. 5 minutes later, he was escorted out. Emma didn't scream. She didn't cry. But when the door shut behind him, she sat down slowly and exhaled the breath she didn't know she'd been holding. By day 30, the narrative had changed. A well-known tech influencer tweeted that Cloakware might be building something revolutionary. Screenshots of Sentinel's simulation leak. Suddenly, everyone's curious. Emma saw the tide shift, just slightly, in their favor. But the war was far from over. Signatech's legal team filed an injunction, attempting to stall Cloakware's launch indefinitely. Emma faced the hardest decision of her career. Go dark, pull back, and risk losing momentum. Or break tradition, go public with everything, and let the world judge who was right. She chose the latter. Final scene of Chapter 6. Emma walks on stage at DefSec Global, a massive cybersecurity conference she was not invited to speak at. But she walks up anyway, unannounced. In a black hoodie, no slides, no PR team, just her. And when she speaks, the crowd goes silent. They tried to steal it, smear it, erase it. But I built this not because I could. I built it because the world needs it. And now, you'll see why. The screen behind her lights up. Sentinel goes live. The moment Sentinel launched, the world responded like it had been holding its breath. By midnight, tech blogs called it a moon landing moment for cybersecurity. By dawn, major outlets had picked it up. By the end of the week, Sentinel had signed 48 enterprise clients, including 3 of Signatech's biggest customers. Emma should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt hollow. She walked the Cloakware floor like a ghost. The adrenaline that had carried her for weeks was gone, and the high of release had given way to something she didn't recognize. Existential whiplash. Was this it? The team was ecstatic. Champagne, selfies, press mentions flooding Slack. But Emma sat at her desk, staring at the internal dashboard. Sentinel's threat maps were populating. The system worked. People were safer because of what she'd built. But that old voice returned, the one she thought she'd buried. "You're only here because they tried to destroy you." Malik knocked gently on her door, balancing 2 coffee cups. "You haven't been home in days." Emma gave a tired smile. "Home feels like another planet." He handed her a cup. "We did it." She nodded. "We did." A pause. "I heard from a friend at the FCC," he added. "There's a formal investigation into Signatech now. IP theft, fraud, wiretaps, the works." Emma blinked. "That fast?" "They underestimated you." She shook her head slowly. "No, they underestimated us." Days later, Emma received a letter from Signatech's former CEO, the one who sold the company before the hostile takeover. "Your fight reminded me why I got into tech in the first place. The new regime lost the script. You didn't. If you ever want to build something again, on a bigger stage, call me." Emma folded the letter carefully and slid it into her drawer. It wasn't time for new empires. Not yet. Week 6 post-launch, invitations began flooding in. Keynotes, panels, funding offers, VC dinners, magazine covers, a feature in Wired. Emma quickly became the face of ethical resilience in tech. The underdog turned innovator. She smiled for cameras, wore sharp blazers, gave practice speeches about trust-driven AI. But behind the scenes, she barely slept. Not from work, from fear. One night, after a panel in DC, she walked back to her hotel alone. A driver offered her a ride. She declined. The sidewalk was wet. A storm had passed. And as she stood waiting to cross, a dark SUV slowed beside her. No license plate. Tinted windows. She froze. For 5 seconds, the car didn't move. Then it peeled away. Her heart thundered against her ribs. That night, she installed a second lock on her hotel door and slept with her phone in hand. Back in the office, Sentinel flagged its first anomaly. A multinational firm's infrastructure was under a slow drip attack from inside its firewalls. Emma coordinated directly with their CISO. They isolated the malware within hours and traced it to a code signature belonging to a Signatech subnetwork. This was no longer just a legal battle. It was cyber warfare. Internal tensions grew. Investors wanted rapid expansion. Emma wanted security audits. Her board wanted a UK branch. She wanted to sleep. Worse, the engineer who had betrayed them, who had been quietly charged, was suddenly trying to sell his story to media outlets, framing himself as a whistleblower. Emma was told to ignore it, but she couldn't, because deep down, some part of her wondered, was she too rigid? Too consumed? Was she becoming what she hated? Then Lila called. Emma hadn't heard from her in weeks. "Heard you went viral," Lila said, her voice tight. "You finally got what you wanted." Emma leaned against her balcony rail, exhaustion in her bones. "I don't even know what I want anymore." Lila was quiet. Then, "There's a void in people like us. We think success will fill it, but it doesn't. It just gives the void better office furniture." Emma let out a broken laugh. Lila continued, "You fought the giant. You won. But don't forget, it wasn't just the code that made you different. It was your intention. Stay grounded, Emma, or someone else will become the next you, and they won't have your ethics." Week 8, a new breach, not external, Cloakware itself. Someone had uploaded Sentinel's source code to a dark web form, partially scrambled, but dangerous nonetheless. The team locked it down within minutes. Emma traced the leak. Not a malicious actor this time, an intern, just 19 years old, trying to prove they were part of history. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. But she called them into her office and asked only one question. "Why?" The intern burst into tears. "I didn't know what it would mean. I didn't think it would matter." Emma looked out her window, the city glittering like circuits. It always matters. 2 months to the day since launch, Emma returned to the Cloakware rooftop. the same one she'd nearly walked away from. This time, she wasn't alone. Her team joined her, quietly holding glasses of cider and champagne. No loud toasts, no confetti. Just a silent acknowledgement of how far they'd come. Malik clinked her glass. So, what now? Emma looked out over the skyline. I rebuild the parts of me that success almost broke. A pause. Then I teach others how to do the same. It came as an email. Subject line, you don't know me, but your code saved my daughter's life. At first, Emma thought it was spam. Then she read the body. My name is Colleen. I work for a humanitarian organization abroad. 3 weeks ago, our systems were attacked, probably because of whistleblower work we did exposing paramilitary surveillance in conflict zones. Sentinel flagged the breach within 6 minutes. We had no idea. The attack targeted files that included the location of safe houses, escape routes, and, worst of all, protected children's records. My daughter is one of those children. If that data had leaked, they would have found us. They didn't. Because of your software. Thank you, Dot. I hope you're okay. I've worked in war zones. Sometimes the battlefield doesn't look like one. Colleen! Emma stared at the screen. The cursor blinked. Her eyes blurred. She didn't realize she was crying until a drop hit the keyboard. The next day, she sat in her apartment, laptop closed, sunlight pouring in. For once, no alarms. No emergencies. No flashing red dashboards. She let herself sit with it. The email, the message, the meaning. All this time, she'd been trying to defeat something, prove something, reclaim something, but she'd forgotten the simplest reason she'd started Cloakware in the first place, to protect people who'd never know her name. Emma pulled out an old photo, her and her younger sister, ages ago, standing barefoot in their childhood backyard. Her sister had vanished into online extremism years earlier, a spiral Emma never could reverse. She'd built firewalls for a world that had none for her. That evening, she replied, Dear Colleen, you don't know me either, but your words reminded me why I fight. Thank you for reminding me what matters more than victory. Humanity. Please stay safe, and tell your daughter she's part of the reason I keep going. Warmly, Emma Lynn. She hit send. And for the first time in a year, she slept without checking her phone. 3 months later, she gave a TED Talk titled What We Leave Behind When We Win. It went viral, but not for the reasons she expected. She didn't talk about Sentinel's architecture or attack deflection thresholds. She talked about fear, about ambition, about waking up in a cold sweat, wondering if building something beautiful was enough to keep you from becoming what you hated. She ended the talk with this. Code doesn't care who uses it, but people do. So be a person worth building for. Be the echo someone hears when the world falls silent. The crowd stood, her voice trembled, and the lights faded. In the months that followed, Emma took a step back from CEO duties and returned to the thing she loved most, solving unsolvable problems. She taught again, free online sessions for teen girls interested in cybersecurity. She partnered with grassroots organizations helping communities without digital infrastructure. She went quiet, even as Sentinel grew louder. But those who knew, knew. Emma Lynn wasn't chasing the spotlight. She was changing it. One night, she returned to the rooftop, alone this time. The city was humming below. Traffic, neon, life. She pulled out her phone, opened a note, and wrote, I forgive you. To the ones who sabotaged me. To the ones who lied. Even to myself. She hit save. A soft breeze moved through her hair. And for the first time since the fall of Signatech, she felt like herself again. Not a symbol, not a warrior, not a CEO. Just a woman who turned her worst day into someone else's lifeline.